My name is Caroline Blake, and until last week, I thought I understood what betrayal felt like. I was wrong. I learned its true shape on a Tuesday morning when the wedding coordinator for my brother-in-law's big day called my office. She was cheerful at first, running through logistics, until her tone shifted into something strained. "Mrs. Blake, your husband instructed us to remove you from the guest list. But he also asked us to keep the $45,000 deposit you provided." I remember staring at the phone in silence, my grip tightening until my knuckles went white. Outside the tall glass windows of my office, Chicago's skyline glimmered in the early sun, but inside me, everything went cold. My husband Daniel had managed to erase me from his brother's wedding while making sure my check still covered every luxury venue, catering, hotel rooms, the works. The coordinator's voice faltered. "I apologize if there's been some confusion. We've never encountered a situation where the primary financial sponsor was removed as a guest." Confusion. That word didn't even begin to touch what I was feeling. Anger surged up, sharp and hot, but beneath it lay something heavier, something close to grief. 15 years of marriage, and this was how Daniel chose to show me my place, a wallet, not a wife. I forced myself to answer calmly. "Thank you for letting me know. I'll address this matter directly with my husband." My voice was steady, but my heart raced so violently, I thought it might burst through my ribs. When I ended the call, I sat back in my leather chair, staring at the spreadsheets spread across my desk. Numbers that proved the empire I had built from nothing, hotels and resorts that bore my fingerprints on every detail. Yet to Daniel and his family, I was still the woman who helped out with events. A convenient prop. A background figure. The betrayal cut deeper because it wasn't just thoughtless, it was calculated. He hadn't slipped up. He had made a decision. He decided my money was welcome, but my presence was not. And in that moment, as the city hummed far below, I understood something Daniel never had. I wasn't just his wife. I was the owner of every company tied to that wedding. And he had just made the mistake of underestimating me. The silence in my office pressed down on me after I hung up the phone. I tried to refocus on the contracts waiting on my desk, but every number blurred into a reminder of how easily Daniel had dismissed me. My company's quarterly revenue reports should have filled me with pride, yet all I could see was the audacity of my husband erasing me from an event I had single-handedly funded. 3 weeks earlier, I had sat at a family dinner when his younger brother, Michael, announced his engagement. There had been joy, yes, but also quiet panic. Michael was an architect with student loans still hanging over him, and his fiancée Claire worked long hours at a clinic buried under medical school debt. They admitted the kind of wedding they dreamed of was impossible. His mother had suggested a church basement reception with folding chairs. Someone else floated the idea of takeout platters instead of catering. I had listened in silence, my glass of wine untouched, while Daniel nodded with sympathy but cast expectant glances at me. It was a look I knew well, the one that said, "You'll fix this, won't you?" He never said it aloud because that would have meant acknowledging my success. To him, my empire was simply Caroline's projects. To me, it was 15 years of relentless work, late nights, endless negotiations, risking everything until Blake Hospitality grew into a network of resorts, venues, and catering companies across 4 states. That night, after the table cleared, Claire approached me in the kitchen. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her voice small. "Caroline, do you know anyone who might help, maybe a florist who'd give us a discount or a hotel that could lower the rate?" I remember setting down my wine glass and saying quietly, "I'll take care of it, everything." She blinked at me in disbelief, and I smiled. "This will be between us. Michael and you deserve a beautiful wedding without feeling indebted." It wasn't charity. It was a gift, and I meant it to be anonymous. I wired the $45,000 that night, covering the estate venue overlooking Lake Michigan, the catering service known for 5-star receptions, and the luxury hotel where their guests would stay. I didn't ask for recognition. All I wanted was to see them happy. What I never imagined was that my silence would give Daniel an opening. By keeping my contribution hidden, I had given him the chance to rewrite the story. To his family, it looked like his connections had secured these lavish arrangements. To me, it was simply generosity. To him, it was a chance to erase me. The betrayal didn't hit all at once. It seeped in memory by memory. The way his sister had smiled at me oddly during brunch last weekend, as though she knew something I didn't. The way his mother had avoided eye contact when the wedding came up. Now it all made sense. They had been in on it. They knew I was being written out, but my money would stay on the table. As I sat in my corner office staring down at the city, I realized the cruelty wasn't just in excluding me. It was in how coordinated it was. My own husband had lied to planners, to vendors, even to his own brother, telling them I was unstable, too emotional, better kept away. And the worst part was how easily everyone seemed to believe him. I closed the folder on my desk and leaned back, pressing my palms flat against the armrest of my chair. The humiliation stung, but beneath it, something colder stirred. It wasn't despair, it was resolve. Daniel thought I was invisible. He thought I would sit quietly, licking my wounds, while his family enjoyed a wedding built on my money. But he had forgotten who I really was. And soon, he was going to remember. The next morning, as I tried to sip coffee in the quiet of my kitchen, my phone lit up again. This time, it was another vendor, the wedding planner herself. Her voice carried that careful tone professionals use when they're walking on eggshells. Mrs. Blake, I need to clarify something. Yesterday, your husband asked us to remove your name from all correspondence seating charts announcements. But he stressed that all financial arrangements would stay intact. He also gave us another family contact, his sister, to handle decisions moving forward. Her words sliced through me sharper than the first call. It wasn't a mistake. Daniel hadn't simply forgotten to mention me, he had erased me. Officially, completely, as though I had never existed. Before I could respond, a text buzzed across my screen. From Daniel. Stop being dramatic. You're not coming to Michael's wedding. The money was a gift. We'll talk when you calm down. Calm down. My husband had just stolen $45,000 from me, humiliated me in front of his entire family, and now he wanted me to calm down. I put the planner on hold and stared at that text. My hands shook, but not from sadness anymore. From fury. When I returned to the call, my voice was ice. Did Daniel say I agreed to these changes? A pause. He presented it as a mutual family decision. Yes. So he had lied outright, claimed I consented, painted me as difficult, unstable, emotional words. I could already hear his mother repeating at the dinner table while nods circled around. That afternoon, Teresa, my sister-in-law, called. Her tone was syrupy, practiced, the kind used when people are trying to convince you you're wrong for being hurt. Caroline, you've been working so hard. Daniel thought maybe stepping back would be best. Less stress for you. You deserve a break. A break. My voice was steady, but I could feel the heat rising in my chest. From attending the wedding I paid for. She faltered, then rushed on. We're so grateful, really. Your contribution means the world to Michael and Claire. But, well, we thought it might be smoother if family handled the rest. Smoother. That was their word for betrayal. By evening, even Michael called. His voice was hesitant, apologetic. Caroline, we appreciate everything. We just thought keeping things smaller, more intimate might help. You understand, right? No, Michael. I don't understand. My voice cracked, then the first crack all day. You're telling me the woman who made this wedding possible doesn't deserve to witness it. There was silence, then a soft laugh that felt like sandpaper. Well, you gave the money as a gift, and gifts don't come with strings. That was when I hung up. I spent the night pacing my home office, staring at the documents stacked around me. I had thought of my company as separate, a world apart from the cold politics of Daniel's family. But as I traced back the contracts, the subsidiaries, the acquisitions I had built, piece by piece, a realization struck me like lightning. Every single vendor tied to this wedding, every florist, every hotel, every planner answered to me. Directly or indirectly, they were all part of Blake Hospitality's portfolio. The irony was brutal. For years, Daniel's family had dismissed my work as Carolyn's little side business. They had no idea that the entire foundation of their dream wedding stood on my empire. And now they were about to learn. The next morning, I called the planner back. My tone was measured professional, but each word was deliberate. Please notify every vendor that their services for the Blake Grant wedding are canceled. Effective immediately. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Canceled. But the wedding is in 6 weeks. Mrs. Blake. That's final. I cut in. All contracts are terminated under parent company authority. Inform your staff. When I ended the call, the silence of my office felt different. Not heavy anymore. Electric. By noon, cancellations rippled through the network. Hotel reservations disappeared. Catering orders evaporated. The venue was wiped clean from the schedule. By sunset, the entire wedding my husband and his family had stolen from me no longer existed. My phone buzzed relentlessly. First Teresa crying, then Michael, his calm veneer cracking as panic seeped through. Finally Daniel, his voice sharp with anger. You've destroyed everything, he shouted down the line. Fix this mess right now. I almost laughed. Fix what, Daniel? The mess you created when you decided your wife's money was useful, but her presence was disposable. You're being vindictive, he snapped. This is exactly why we didn't want you there. You make everything about you. His words, meant to wound, only revealed the truth. He had never respected me. Not as a partner, not as a woman, not even as a human being. To him, I was a resource to be mined, a problem to be managed. But now he knew resources can fight back. I didn't answer Daniel's calls after that. His fury didn't interest me anymore. What I wanted was silence long enough to plan my next move. And when it came, it was not a plea or a threat, it was an invitation. On Monday morning, formal notices went out from my assistant's desk summoning Daniel, his parents, Michael, Claire, and Teresa, to Blake Hospitality headquarters. Not a dinner table, not a living room, but the 31st floor of my tower overlooking Chicago. If they wanted to talk about family, they would do it on my grounds surrounded by the empire they had pretended not to see. They arrived one by one, their expressions a mix of confusion and dread. Daniel walked in first, pale and restless, his usual swagger reduced to tight movements and darting eyes. His parents followed, whispering nervously, as though they were entering a courtroom. Michael and Claire stepped inside, trying for calm, but betraying themselves with tense smiles. Teresa lingered in the doorway, her exhaustion plain. She looked like she hadn't slept since the cancellations began. I stood at the head of the conference table, a wall of glass behind me, framing the city skyline. Sunlight struck the polished wood, the framed awards, the contracts that lined the shelves. Everything in that room shouted what Daniel had refused to admit: I was not a side player. I was the one holding every card. Thank you for coming. I began, my tone clipped professional. We have several matters to discuss. No one spoke. The silence was thick, broken only when Michael finally cleared his throat. Caroline, I want to apologize. For all of us. What we did leaving you out was wrong. I should have stopped it. His voice trembled, but carried sincerity, a courage I hadn't heard from him before. He looked at me directly, as if begging me to see the difference between him and Daniel. Daniel slammed his hand on the table. This is ridiculous. Caroline, you can't punish an entire family because you're angry. You were never supposed to control this wedding. I cut him off, calm but sharp. Control, Daniel. You erased me. You lied to vendors. You painted me unstable. You stole from me. That wasn't control. That was betrayal. His parents shifted uncomfortably, eyes on the table. Claire squeezed Michael's hand, her face pale. Teresa's lips trembled as she started to cry. You all had conversations about removing me, I continued. You all decided my money was useful, but my presence was inconvenient. And you thought I would stay quiet. That is why we are here now. Daniel leaned forward, his voice rising. We were protecting Michael's wedding from your drama. I laughed, a short, humorless sound. Protecting him. By keeping my $45,000 while erasing me, call it what it is. Daniel stealing. For a moment, no one breathed. Daniel's face flushed with anger, but his words faltered. He wasn't used to being challenged in public, least of all by me. I straightened, placing both hands on the conference table. The wedding, as it was planned, no longer exists. But if you want Michael and Claire to have a celebration, there will be conditions. My conditions. Michael's head snapped up, hope flickering across his face. Daniel's parents looked wary, but they leaned forward too. Only Daniel sank back, scowling, arms crossed like a sulking child. These are non-negotiable, I said, my voice echoing against the glass walls. $75,000 payable in advance to cover all costs. Written apologies from each of you, Daniel, Teresa, and both of you. I nodded at his parents, acknowledging that your treatment was unacceptable. And during the wedding reception, public recognition of what nearly destroyed it. You will make sure every guest understands why this celebration almost didn't happen. Gasps rippled through the room. Teresa buried her face in her hands. Daniel's mother shook her head, muttering, "Impossible." But Michael stood. His voice was steady this time. "We'll do it. I'll do it. Claire and I will make sure it happens." Daniel turned on him. "You can't be serious. You're giving her everything she wants. Everything she deserves." Michael cut in sharply. His eyes flashed, and for the first time I saw the man he could be when he wasn't bent beneath family pressure. She gave us the wedding. We betrayed her. If this is the cost of making it right, then I'll pay it. The silence that followed was heavy but final. Daniel sat back, his jaw tight, but he didn't argue again. His parents looked defeated, worn down by the weight of their own complicity. Teresa wiped her eyes, nodding weakly. I let the moment stretch before I spoke again. You have 48 hours to decide. Either you agree to my terms or there will be no wedding at all. As they filed out, I remained at the head of the table, staring out at the city that had built me and carried me to this moment. The quiet woman they had dismissed, underestimated, erased, she was gone. What stood in her place was someone they could no longer ignore, and they knew it. 2 days later, a letter arrived at my office. Michael's handwriting was steady, deliberate, the lines carefully measured like the blueprints he spent his life drafting. He accepted my terms without hesitation. Attached was proof of a wire transfer, $75,000 into my business account. Along with it came 4 written apologies, some stiff and reluctant, others genuine. Daniel's note was short, grudging nothing more than a half-hearted acknowledgement. His mother's letter leaned on excuses about family harmony. Teresa's apology was longer, spilling tears across the page, claiming she had only wanted to protect me. But Michael's was different. His words were raw, his remorse unflinching. We failed you. I failed you. But you gave us a chance to make it right, and I won't waste it again. 4 weeks later, the wedding finally happened. Not the extravagant gala Daniel's family had once envisioned, but something smaller, sharper, and infinitely more meaningful. The guest list was trimmed to 40. The venue was one of my properties on the lakefront, its glass walls framing the water at sunset. The decor was simple, elegant wildflowers in understated arrangements, candles flickering against wood and stone. No gaudy displays, no empty show. Vendors moved with precision, their deference unmistakable. They didn't see me as Daniel's wife anymore. They saw me as the woman who owned the ground beneath their feet, the contracts in their hands. Respect had replaced dismissal. Recognition had replaced invisibility. During the reception, Michael stood with a microphone, his voice strong, steady. Before we celebrate our marriage, I want to acknowledge the person without whom none of this would exist. Caroline Blake. He looked directly at me, his eyes clear. We wronged her. We betrayed her generosity, and she chose not revenge but justice. She reminded us of the kind of loyalty and dignity family should mean. For that, we are forever in her debt. Applause filled the hall, not the polite kind, but the kind that comes from hearts stirred by truth. Guests turned their eyes to me, and for once, I didn't shrink back. I met their gaze, calm, unflinching. I hadn't asked for recognition, but it felt like vindication all the same. Claire rose next, tears shimmering in her eyes. We treated Caroline with disrespect when she deserved gratitude. She gave us everything, and we repaid her with betrayal. I will never forget the lesson she taught me, that strength is not about wealth or power, but the courage to use them wisely, even when people don't deserve it. Her words landed heavier than I expected. For the first time, I believed she truly understood. Daniel, meanwhile, remained silent. He sat at the edge of the room, his posture stiff, his usual dominance replaced by wary restraint. He didn't speak that night. He didn't even try. When the evening ended, Michael hugged me tightly. "Thank you," he whispered. And for the first time in months, I felt something like peace. But peace with Michael didn't mean peace with Daniel. The morning after the wedding, he appeared in our kitchen, still in his suit, from the night before his tie askew, his face drawn with exhaustion. He carried roses, the expensive kind, the kind he bought, when he needed a shortcut to forgiveness. He set them on the counter between us. "Caroline," he said quietly, "we need to talk. I know I made mistakes. But 15 years together, that has to count for something. We can fix this. Counseling, whatever you want." I stirred my coffee slowly, deliberately, the way I did before every major decision of my career. Then I looked at him and said, "You didn't make a mistake, Daniel. You made a choice. You chose to humiliate me. You chose to steal from me. And you chose to convince everyone else I was the problem. That's not a mistake. That's who you are." His face crumpled. "Don't do this. Don't throw away everything we built." I glanced at the Range Rover, already packed in the driveway, filled with the few things that truly mattered to me. "We didn't build this life together, Daniel. I built it. You only ever lived in it," he begged as I walked away. His voice followed me through the door, through the garage, echoing against the concrete as I turned the key in the ignition. But I didn't look back. I had spent 15 years looking back, forgiving, excusing, diminishing myself for people who saw me only as convenient. That chapter was finished. 3 months later, Blake Hospitality moved into a new headquarters in downtown Chicago, a glass tower glittering with the confidence of an empire no one could dismiss anymore. The story of the wedding had spread through the industry like wildfire, transforming me from a respected businesswoman into something of a legend. Competitors treated me differently now. Partners approached me with awe. I had become the quiet mogul who revealed her power when betrayed, and no one dared forget it. And as for me, I learned that generosity without boundaries is an invitation to be erased. That silence is not virtue when it allows others to write you out of your own story. The woman Daniel tried to erase was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, sharper, and unapologetically visible. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just funding the celebration. I was the reason it existed. And this time, everyone knew it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.